In the distance, where the sky meets the sea, the silhouette of a dreamlike city emerges. Shimmering domes of bronze and gold catch fire in the sunset light, while gleaming boulevards paved with the legendary orichalcum wind among luxuriant gardens. At the heart of this splendor stands the Great Library, a colossal edifice sculpted from luminescent white stone, guarded by towers clad in orichalcum that glow like burning embers. An imaginary orchestral score pours over this tableau, amplifying the feeling of grandeur and mystery. Yet, beyond the dazzling beauty, hidden in the shelves of this mythical library, lie lost texts and forgotten inventions born of an ancient wisdom scarcely conceivable. A solemn hush reigns, as though the entire Atlantis awaits with bated breath for something unforeseen. Then all at once, the ground begins to quake subtly beneath one's feet, a harbinger of the sudden catastrophe that would forever end the brilliance of this lost world. The legend of Atlantis carries us far back, around the year 9600 BC, when this island empire supposedly flourished beyond the Pillars of Hercules, the Strait of Gibraltar. Atlantis was governed by scholar kings, legendary monarchs who ruled through the power of the mind as well as the symbol of the divine trident. It was said these wise rulers were descendants of Poseidon, god of the sea, thus possessing both spiritual authority and temporal power over their subjects. At the dawn of Atlantis, Poseidon was believed to have shaped the island with his own divine hands. The legend says the god, enamored of the beautiful mortal Cleito, raised concentric hills and dug canals around her home to protect her. He made 2 springs burst forth on the island, one of warm water and one of cold, that fed the lush vegetation of the gardens. The 10 sons, born from Poseidon and Cleito's love, became the first rulers of Atlantis, with Atlas as the firstborn and heir to the throne. According to the myth, the name of Atlantis and the Atlantic Ocean derived from Atlas, while his brothers each governed one of the 10 regions of the empire. Their capital city, situated on an island and surrounded by other islands, was arranged in concentric rings, alternating bands of land and circular canals connected by ingenious bridges. The defensive walls were covered with gleaming metals. Rumor had it that the outer ring sparkled with reddish copper, the second ring with tin, and the innermost citadel itself was plated with orichalcum, the mythical metal considered more precious than anything except gold. In the center of the city, beside the temple dedicated to Poseidon, rose the Great Library, a sanctuary of knowledge whose massive columns seemed to absorb the daylight sun and then radiate it at twilight. The library glistened beneath its incandescent orichalcum spires, a guiding beacon for all who thirsted for wisdom. Atlantis's wealth was legendary. The island was abundant in everything necessary for life. The land yielded rich harvests of grains and exotic fruits, while in the forests and plains roamed a great variety of creatures, even elephants, it was said, a sign of bounty. Its mines produced plentiful orichalcum, a metal Plato described as extracted from the island's soil, more prized in those times than anything except gold. Through trade and conquest, the island gathered treasures and knowledge from all the known world. Imagine a harbor filled with elegant ships unloading spices, ivory, and papyrus scrolls from Egypt and Greece, all destined for this miraculous city. In every respect, Atlantis was a civilization centuries ahead of its time, where art, science, and spirituality flourished under the protection of the scholar kings. Over the millennia, Atlantis's tale became steeped in legends. They say that in the city's great library existed crystal codices which, when opened, emitted musical sounds. These crystal books had long stored the world's knowledge, and myth has it that their translucent pages vibrated and sang, as if the wisdom contained within had its own voice. The Atlantean scholars supposedly learned to enchant the crystals, encoding information into sonic and luminous frequencies decipherable only by the library's initiates. One of the most famous legendary artifacts was the 10th scroll. According to stories passed down by Egyptian priests and later shared by Greek sailors, the librarians of Atlantis kept under lock and key a prophetic scroll, the 10th of a sacred collection which foreshadowed the empire's fate. This 10th scroll was said to contain warnings about a devastating flood and a coming moral decline. Many of Atlantis's rulers, it was believed, feared the scroll's wise prophecies and hid it away, deeming it too dangerous for the people to know. Thus, the mysterious scroll fueled countless speculations. If it had been read in time, might Atlantis have averted its doom? For the Atlanteans, knowledge was not merely a practical tool, but a divine force in its own right. In their mythology, the gods bestowed upon humans the gifts of fire and the light of reason, and the pursuit of knowledge was considered a form of worship. Thus, the Library of Atlantis was more than just a building. It was a temple of wisdom, where priest scholars performed rituals of learning. Legends say that sometimes, in the stillness of night, mysterious choruses arose from the library's dome, perhaps the wind rustling among manuscripts, or perhaps the very voices of the gods whispering their last secrets into the ears of the chosen. Atlantis and its great library did not exist in a vacuum, but were an integral part of a prosperous and advanced society. On a social level, Atlantis was a thriving state in which well-being was shared among citizens. The city had public squares, grand temples, meeting halls, and communal baths fed by ingeniously heated water. Slavery, if it existed, was scarcely practiced. Chronicles speak more of a free population of farmers, artisans, and merchants enjoying the enlightened protection of the Scholar King's laws. The streets were kept clean thanks to an advanced sewage system, and at night they were lit by oil lamps enhanced with polished bronze mirrors, so the city glowed softly even after darkness fell. Atlantean engineers had developed astounding hydraulic systems. The city's concentric canals brought water from the surrounding mountains into the center, supplying fountains and public baths. There was talk of underground aqueducts and water-driven pumps that irrigated the palace gardens. Even the fields beyond the capital benefited from irrigation canals and ingenious sluices, transforming the island into a veritable agricultural paradise. Inside the library, technology and knowledge blended seamlessly. The vast halls were equipped with mechanical bronze catalogs, something like the ancient world's computers. Picture a device with finely calibrated gears engraved with symbols and numerals, which librarians could rotate to quickly find the location of a particular scroll or tablet. Manually operated, these mechanisms served as living catalogs. When aligned correctly, they indicated the room and shelf where the desired text was to be found. Atlantean ingenuity in organizing knowledge was astounding. By comparison, the libraries of later civilizations, such as that of Alexandria, would have seemed rudimentary. Alongside science, art and literature flourished in Atlantis. The library housed mythological epics and philosophical poems, as well as technical manuals and travel journals. The musicians of Atlantis composed grand hymns for festivities, while painters and sculptors decorated the walls of its halls with frescoes and statues that glorified both the gods and knowledge. Atlantean medicine was remarkably advanced. Healers knew the properties of hundreds of plants and marine extracts, preparing restorative elixirs. Rumor holds they even performed delicate surgical procedures using finely polished obsidian instruments. All this knowledge, scientific, artistic, or spiritual, was painstakingly recorded on scrolls and tablets, awaiting discovery by future generations. On the library's roof stood astronomical observatories. Beneath glass and copper vaults, wise men studied the skies and the stars. They built observation tools akin to astrolabes, calibrated to track the movement of planets and stars. On clear nights, while the city slept, one could see the silhouettes of Atlantean astronomers turning the lenses and discs engraved with constellations, recording eclipses and conjunctions on clay tablets. They had accurately calculated the length of the solar year and even knew of the existence of planets yet unseen by the naked eye, believing that the order of the heavens reflected the order on Earth. Daily life around the library was lively and cosmopolitan. Scholars in the blue robe of Atlantis gathered daily in the great reading hall, debating theories about the stars, the gods' wisdom, or the mysteries of matter. Beside them, merchants from diverse corners of the world, Egypt, Phoenicia, perhaps even the legendary Americas, brought rare manuscripts and scientific artifacts to be studied in the library. The stalls in the central marketplace overflowed with scrolls and instruments, hourglasses, astrolabes, globes engraved with the map of the sky, and prototypes of never-before-seen tools. Public demonstrations were held. A sage showed the crowd how a miniature hydraulic pump worked. Another presented a mechanical puzzle that mimicked the planet's movement. Thus, Atlantis was a buzzing hive of intellectual and commercial activity where knowledge and trade mutually enriched each other. No splendor lasts forever. The Atlanteans, in their pride, gradually began to forget the guiding principles that had made them great. Plato recounts that in the beginning they were virtuous. As long as the divine nature endured in them, they despised all but virtue. Wealth did not rob them of moderation. They lived modestly and wisely, unspoiled by luxury or power. The library thrived, knowledge was free and revered, and the law was sacred. But as the empire's wealth grew, the Atlanteans' souls changed. When the divine portion began to fade and the mortal nature gained predominance, they became filled with greed and unrighteous might, Plato wrote of them. Virtue gave way to unbridled ambition, and the former respect for laws and gods turned into arrogance. It is said that in the final years of Atlantis, even in the great library, blacklists of forbidden books appeared. Certain inconvenient scrolls, perhaps including the prophetic 10th scroll, were secretly burned by those who feared the truths they contained. This censorship of knowledge symbolized Atlantis's break from its own ideal of divine wisdom. As moral values wavered, so too did the island's physical foundations begin to tremble. Legends speak of ominous signs. Minor earthquakes felt with increasing frequency, spring water turning salty, animals growing restless for no apparent reason. Some Atlanteans, gripped by hubris, supposedly continued dangerous experiments with the forces of nature. There is speculation that court scholars attempted to harness enormous energies, geo-energetic experiments like tapping into the volcanic power beneath the island, or using giant crystals to concentrate the sun's energy. Such flirting with fire could have weakened the Earth's crust under Atlantis, setting the stage for disaster. Meanwhile, Atlantis was heading toward external conflict. As Plato describes, its armies set out to conquer the Mediterranean world, colliding with ancient Athens. Their military arrogance was in vain. The Athenians, forced to fight alone against the empire, managed the impossible by repelling the Atlantean invasion. By contrasting legendary Athens with fallen Atlantis, Plato illustrated that only a society faithful to moral values can endure. The gods, witnessing the Atlanteans' downfall, poured out their wrath. Indeed, Plato abruptly ends his dialogue just as Zeus, father of the gods, convened a divine council to punish the corrupted Atlantis. Zeus's words did not survive since Critias cuts off at that point, but the end was self-evident. Atlantis was struck by a terrible cataclysm. The Egyptian chronicle Plato cites records the fatal moment. In a single day and night of misfortune, Atlantis sank into the sea. The earth cracked, colossal waves engulfed temples and libraries, and the orichalcum domes collapsed under the weight of the raging ocean. The inhabitants of Atlantis were caught off guard. The split earth and towering waves gave them no escape. In the harbor, ships were hurled ashore like toys, and temples and entire palaces crumbled in an instant. Those who tried to flee to the island's high points watched even those hills gradually subside, until the furious ocean covered everything. The entire island, along with its people, disappeared into the depths, leaving behind only a vast muddy shoal that made the surrounding waters impassable for ships. The great library, once a beacon of knowledge, remained lodged for millennia in its stone tomb in the silence of the abyss. Yet the legend itself did not vanish entirely. It is said that thousands of years later, the priests of ancient Egypt revealed the story of Atlantis to the Greek sage Solon, who brought it back to the Hellenic world. Through Solon, the tale eventually reached Plato, who set it down in writing, ensuring its immortality. Scholars continue to debate how much real history and how much myth the story of Atlantis contains. Plato, writing Timaeus and Critias in the 4th century BC, likely used this account as a parable of pride and downfall. Even so, the mystery has never ceased to captivate. Modern research has sought to link the legend to known geological and archaeological events. Some historians believe Atlantis could be just an allegory inspired by various actual catastrophes. One theory contends that the Minoan civilization on the island of Crete was the prototype for Atlantis. Around the year 1620 BC, the Santorini Thera volcano in the Aegean Sea erupted cataclysmically. The colossal explosion and resulting tsunami devastated Minoan cities, which at the time constituted Europe's most advanced civilization, a maritime empire shattered by nature's wrath, mirroring perfectly a sunken continent. Others point to the Greek city of Helike as a possible source of inspiration. Helike was a real settlement on the coast of the Gulf of Corinth that one night in the year 373 BC was swallowed by the earth and the sea following a devastating earthquake. Helike completely sank, becoming a legend among survivors. Very likely Plato himself heard of this catastrophe and wove it into his narrative. Thus, Atlantis may be a composite of memories about Santorini, Helike, and other forgotten cataclysms. The mystery of Atlantis has spawned countless expeditions and announcements of supposed discoveries. Throughout the centuries, explorers have feverishly sought the lost island. Some tried to locate it near the Azores or the Canary Islands, others in the enigmatic depths of the Bermuda Triangle. During the 1960s, the discovery of rectangular underwater structures near the Bahamas, known as the Bimini Road, caused a stir as a potential Atlantean remnant. More recently, attention has turned to the Sahara Desert, where the circular formation called the Eye of the Sahara, the Richat structure in Mauritania, exhibits nearly perfect concentric rings, fueling speculation that it could be Atlantis's imprint on land. There is even the hypothesis that Atlantis was, in fact, the American continent overlooked by ancient Greeks. To date, however, none of these leads has been scientifically confirmed. Even so, the search continues. The specialized field, sometimes referred to as Atlantology, persists at the boundary between science and passion, fueled by the hope that one day we might unlock the truth behind this myth. Atlantis still haunts our imagination today. It is the ultimate symbol of a lost utopia and of humanity's thirst for knowledge, perpetually driving us toward the unknown. Its story warns us against the peril of pride and the abuse of power, yet also inspires us to dream of ideal societies guided by wisdom. Atlantis personifies the hope that humanity might one day attain such a pinnacle of achievement, and likewise reminds us of the fragility of those dreams if they are not founded on morality. We close by envisioning a cinematic scene steeped in melancholy and hope. Deep beneath the waves of the Atlantic Ocean, near a multicolored coral reef, the eroded outlines of ancient columns are discernible. A diver squeezes through the algae-covered ruins, and the beam of the flashlight dances over bas-reliefs encrusted with deposits. There, in the flickering light, a strange symbol can be glimpsed carved into the stone, perhaps a fragment of the lost Atlantean alphabet. Your heart quickens. Right below the layer of phosphorescent corals, the waterproof scrolls of the great library might yet slumber. The diver carefully stretches out a hand toward a piece of inscribed stone, gently prying it free. The air brims with emotion. He knows that at this instant he touches legendary history. Then our imagination's camera soars upward over the vast expanse of blue, toppled columns, statues frozen in silence, all enveloped by the tranquil dance of fish. Atlantis slumbers beneath the waters, but it is not forgotten. With each generation, humanity returns to this story, diving into oceanic depths in search of it and probing the depths of the soul in quest of lost wisdom. Thus, as long as the story of Atlantis urges us to seek and to dream of better worlds, the spirit of the great library will never truly perish. After all, Atlantis endures as long as its memory lives in human hearts, and as long as treasure hunters for its wisdom persist. Until then, the legend encourages us never to cease pursuing knowledge and to envision better worlds, however distant, whether in the past or in the future.